the end of the day, before we take any sort of action on anything, whether it's buying something or signing a petition or volunteering, we're kind of thinking like, okay, is this adding value to my life? Why should I care? Why is this important to me? So if we're building content with that in mind and directly responding to the problems and the values of your audience, then that is building that connection.
Hello. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Proimpact Podcast, How Modern EDs Should Think About Blank. But the reason we chose this topic is there's just more and more data that says that donors, and especially younger donors, that one of the first things that they do when they discover a new nonprofit organization that they're considering supporting is research the leadership of the organization. And so that means that for an ED, your online presence is more important than ever before. It can be this sort of hidden factor that you don't know how much it's determining how much people are donating and supporting your organization. And the key to unlocking trust and more donations and support for your organization. I'm Greg Harrell Edge, the founder of the Proimpact Project. During my 9 years as an executive director, I looked around over and over again for resources about how modern EDs should approach the role with things like thought leadership. And so that's what the topic of today's episode is about. And I'm thrilled to invite Brynne Krispin and to be able to chat with her. Brynne is a social media strategist and the founder of Cause Fokus, a boutique agency that helps purpose-driven leaders build trust and visibility through thought leadership. And Brynne, the thing that really drew me to you and to Cause Fokus was that idea of an empathy-centered approach. And Brynne is the author of a new ebook called Read the Room: Why Empathy is the Secret Sauce and Successful Branding, that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But thank you so much for being the first ever guest on the show, Brynne.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Greg, for having me. Excited to talk about this.
Yeah. So one of the things for EDs is always trying to figure out not just how to do something, but what should the organization even be focusing on? There's so many different tactics out there. What is one compelling fact or stat or something that you would want EDs to know that would really open their eyes and say, okay, thought leadership and LinkedIn thought leadership is something that I should be focusing on and paying attention to?
Yeah, well, if you're like any of the other EDs that I talk to every single day, you're wondering, how can I increase my bottom line? How will this actually drive revenue? What do I need to do? What are some stones that I haven't turned over yet, that maybe there's missing revenue somewhere that I haven't explored? And so that's where we have really tapped into thought leadership and seen a lot of growth and success for nonprofits, is tapping into the personal accounts on LinkedIn of your executive team, especially your CEO or your founder, who has those really compelling stories and that personal point of view. And so one of the stats that I go back to all the time is from Deloitte back in 2023. They did something called a trust survey, where they just did a mass survey across the US. They looked at companies, consumers, users, and how their social media interactions are with companies. And they found that 88% of executives say that trust impacts the bottom line directly. And so we're looking at building trust from an organization standpoint, a company standpoint, not just, to feel good about yourself or to build a better relationship with your customers or your donors, but also it increases the bottom line when you have that trust. And I'm sure you and I too, as a consumer, can attest to that when we trust a company, we're more likely to spend more money with them, right? We're likely to go back and purchase something more and stick around long term. So it builds that loyalty, it builds the trust, and it just overall just increases your bottom line. So when you're trying to weigh all the different options with marketing and social and email and all these options, just be thinking about, okay, what is actually going to help increase revenue in my bottom line? And so that's why we've really zeroed in on thought leadership, because we've seen that to be such a strong correlation.
It's amazing that trust is such a big factor in the for-profit. I mean, it's got to be even bigger in nonprofit. And for Proimpact Project, we've started doing some surveying of the general public and found some really interesting early data that supports exactly that idea that people, and we've seen the Edelman Trust Index, where, I mean, a few years ago when this first happened, it shocked me that people now trust nonprofits less than for-profits, which I think is absolutely wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Probably, I would guess one of the reasons, as an ED, is that it's harder to have metrics that you can show your board, et cetera. I mean, how do you measure trust? So I would ask, what are some of the critical metrics when your clients are doing thought leadership really well? What do you look at? What are some of those softer metrics that you can measure and see what that improvement and growth looks like?
Yeah, I call these the you get me metrics. And this goes back to our work on empathy and just trying to build an emotional connection with your audience. What kind of content can you build that makes your audience say, oh, they get me. I can trust them. I understand. Like there's a connection there that goes beyond just, I want to follow this account, or I'm interested, or I'm curious. It goes into that like one-to-one connection of, okay, they understand my world, they understand my problems, they understand what's important to me. So those look like, again, it depends on what your overall goals are with thought leadership. Some of our clients just want more visibility and awareness because there's a big knowledge gap on what they're doing in the world and the problems they're trying to solve. So we're looking at more top of the funnel metrics with impressions and follower growth and profile views, just to build that awareness around the problem that they're trying to solve. But then going even deeper to more engagement rates and looking at, okay, based on how many people are seeing your content, the content's going out there and being delivered, what are they actually doing with it? Are they commenting on it and asking questions? Are they sending it to a friend? Are they saving it to look at later? Are they reposting it? That's a big one we look at, because that says, hey, I resonated with this so much that I want to take up prime real estate on my feed, my social feed, to share this with my network and make sure my friends and colleagues see this, because it's so important. So looking at those you get me metrics of just what goes deeper than just the dashboard metrics that you see of impressions and follower account, those are good to keep track on. But going a little deeper and actually listening to your audience and seeing what kind of questions they have and what kind of sentiment and what they're actually doing with the content will give you a good gauge of whether or not they trust your content when they see it, and if they want more of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And as organizations, we focus so much on the checkout metrics around donations of, is somebody abandoning the cart, or how many people are opening our fundraising email at the end of the year. I would guess that the correlation between those you get me metrics and donations is one of the strongest and sort of under through lines that hasn't been built out and measured enough. What's one organization that you point to, the content that they have been doing, you're a big fan of, or a kind of case study or story you can share of what success looks like for an organization doing thought leadership?
Well, one organization we've partnered with recently is called the Heat Initiative, and they are taking a lot of bold stances out in the online child safety space and calling out big tech for their policies that don't protect kids, that are putting kids and teenagers in vulnerable positions when they sign up for these social media apps, or if they have an iPhone, and what images are allowed in iCloud. And so they're calling out these big tech companies. They have a really clear stance, clear goal, exactly what they want to accomplish. But they just weren't sharing it from that personal point of view, and they hadn't activated their LinkedIn audience yet. So we've been working with them for the last few months just to activate and get really clear on their messaging and the personal perspective, really position their executive team as experts in what needs to happen in order for them to see the improvement in the policies to protect kids online. And we've just seen the content really take off, especially from their CEO and founder, being able to tap into her expertise. And again, a lot of this was, it wasn't like we were creating brand new ideas. She had the ideas. A lot of times we work with leaders who these ideas are just kind of shoved in the back of their head. They haven't really taken the time to put it out there in the world in this more personal format. But just being able to tap into that, she already had a great network already built, and they were clearly hungry for just the education, to know what to do, to stand up and kind of help advocate for these policies. So just after 90 days, we've already seen her profile visibility increase over 900%, which is wild. Her impressions have also increased 950%, including one post that went viral, getting 50,000 views. And this is not content that is very typical that you see on LinkedIn. It's very bold, it's very direct, it's calling out these companies for the gaps in their policies, and just being very honest and vulnerable and transparent with their audiences on what this looks like to stand up and get some attraction and attention on this major issue. So it's been really exciting, and also just powerful to see, just tapping into her expertise and her industry knowledge and her network, of the traction that we can get with getting her more media attention, more podcast interviews, but also just other concerned parents and users who don't know about these issues yet, who need to be aware of them for their own kids and protecting their kids. So that's been a really inspiring and empowering project to be a part of.
The idea of that jump from LinkedIn thought leadership content into those other avenues, the podcasts and the media interviews, makes a lot of sense also, and sort of relates to a question that I saw that we have in the chat from John Farrell. The idea of out of all the social media platforms that somebody could pick, which is the best for awareness, exposure, and content, and then for thought leadership in particular, how do you see that fitting in with the organization's social media platforms? What do you think is the best for thought leadership and as it relates to the other platforms that an org might be on?
That's a really good question. Thank you, John. And one thing I say a lot is that you do not need to be everywhere all the time. Just pick one or two platforms that you can really learn and build your content for and optimize it. So that way all your energy and your time is maximized and you're focusing on producing quality content there. But we've been testing this over really the last 5 years since I first started doing more thought leadership content when I was in-house as a social media manager out here in DC, and then starting Cause Fokus almost 3 years ago. We've tested this on multiple platforms and have just seen hands down LinkedIn to be the number one place to do this, because the people here are in that more professional mindset. They're showing up with more intentionality and wanting to learn and educate. They're wanting to connect with other leaders. They're wanting to share content that is educational. And so we've just seen the type of content, especially from a nonprofit who's working on really important issues, that just needs to kind of build that awareness and education and build a community around it. The people here on LinkedIn are more intentional and more active as far as building more of that thought leadership content. So we've also started experimenting with Substack, and we've seen some interesting metrics there, is just getting more of that longer article thought leadership built, but still LinkedIn seems to be the best one right now.
I saw somebody post, I think on LinkedIn is the only platform left that is what we all wanted social media platforms to be when they launched.
Yeah, I get that. I know. Yeah. And that's why I've leaned into it too, because I came into social wanting it to be this place of community and connection. And over time just got so fed up with some of the policies that these other platforms have rolled out, or just how focused they are on ads and monetizing, which I get, they're a business, right? Yeah. But LinkedIn has really spent a lot of time and been more careful with the algorithm, protecting it so that it doesn't turn into this like hyper entertainment focused platform where it's just all about what can we get to go viral today. It's all about instead, how can we connect the right people with the issues and the content that's important to them. Yeah.
Although, like you said, even for them, it's a trade-off. And that's one of the things, and that I, want to dig into your empathy approach. And the new ebook that you just came out with, Read the Room, Why Empathy is the Secret Sauce and Successful Branding. because it is one of the things that really drew me to your approach when we were launching the Proimpact Project, which is essentially a thought leadership initiative. And that has to do with the idea that, you still, if you put into ChatGPT, optimize this for LinkedIn or look up a LinkedIn strategy, it's a lot of stuff that, put LinkedIn playbook in the chat and I'll send you my free yada, yada, and have a really controversial first line. And so it's difficult as a leader where you know that the stuff that even on LinkedIn, the algorithm wants is not necessarily empathy driven, but that what people actually want sort of is. So you've got what the algorithm wants and what people want. Talk through a little bit of how do you think leaders effectively take an empathy centered approach in our sector more than any other, but actually also optimize to get the content delivered and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, well, again, I think it goes back to trust. So at the end of the day, what kind of content can we build that builds that trust and rapport with your audience? And that goes back to building an emotional connection with them. And so we found the best way to do that is taking this empathy first mindset of building content that puts yourself in your audience's shoes. So whether it's your donor or a corporate partner that you really want to build a partnership with, or even a policymaker, like what are they thinking about? What are their problems? What do they care about? Because at the end of the day, before we take any sort of action on anything, whether it's buying something or signing a petition or volunteering, we're kind of thinking like, okay, is this adding value to my life? Why should I care? Why is this important to me? So if we're building content with that in mind and directly responding to the problems and the values of your audience, and that is building that connection at the end of the day. And that's causing that deeper loyalty that it helps your brand stand out. Because again, this is a rare approach to take, especially in the world of social media and lots of noise and lots of just junk that we scroll through every single day. And so if you come across a brand that seems to genuinely care about you and care about your values, then you're going to take note of that. And you're going to, at least it's going to pique your curiosity and it's going to create that you get me mindset. And so when we take that more empathetic approach, especially as a nonprofit who needs donor support, they need people to stick around long term and support their mission and show up time and time again consistently, then that is the best way to just begin building that relationship with your audience online. But of course it translates offline too, whether you're having a donor meeting, at a restaurant or sending a letter to someone, having that empathy first mindset, you can't lose with that. You're going to be able to build that deeper connection.
And one of the things that I've really liked about your advice and strategy for the content that is just starting to come out. So the content that I've posted on LinkedIn so far has not yet really been informed by Brynne's strategy, but it's the plan for the stuff that I'm going to start posting is, and I sort of almost think of it like where there's this Venn diagram of a circle of like tactics that work on LinkedIn, and then a circle of like empathy and genuineness, and that there is this sliver that overlaps, and that's where you've really that just things about human nature that's sort of like leading with, let me tell you a story about this is more, is more effective, where it doesn't feel, as manipulative as some of the tactics that work well, but, is still gets people's attention and generates curiosity and then delivers on something that's really heartfelt and genuine. And so I feel like you've done a really amazing job finding the middle of that Venn diagram in a way that's exciting and feels more genuine and natural as the person posting it.
Thank you so much. It's taken a lot of trial and error to get here, a lot of experimenting, and grateful for our clients too, who know they sign up as guinea pigs, because this really is just a new terrain that we're all experimenting and figuring out. But the more we kind of lean into it, we're just seeing better and better results. So yeah, thank you for picking that up.
One more question I want to ask is sort of how should an ED start? Where, I think it was always on my to-do list during my years as an ED. I always thought like I would tell friends, you're going to start seeing more stuff from me on LinkedIn. I'm going to get really serious about that, in the next few months. And I sort of like just never did it. And I think one part of it was that idea that we just talked about, like what felt like whenever I would sit down to do it, what felt like the right voice. The other thing felt like, the other resistant or hurdle that I had to get over was the idea of, it felt like this all or nothing thing where once I started it, I should be doing this number of posts a week and I should be optimizing this and following up with everybody. Do you have any advice for sort of how an ED can start dipping a toe in that water? And then once they're seeing some results and success, then come to you and say, okay, now let's level this up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you said it, dipping your toe in the water, just starting small, doing baby steps. And if you've read Atomic Habits, the small incremental steps to building a good habit is really where it starts. So try not to think of it as this huge mountain that you need to climb in a week, but just thinking through, okay, what is maybe one idea that I've had in the back of my head that just hasn't been out there in the world yet? Just focusing on that one idea. How can we build one post around that one idea and just try it out? And it's probably going to be uncomfortable. It might make you cringe a little bit. You'll probably have a lot of self-doubt. I know I still do. But just starting and trying to experiment and get some content out in the world will kind of give you that knowledge and that feedback that you need. Because once you start posting and seeing what people resonate with or what questions they ask, that can then help you give lots more content ideas and actually build content around what people want and want to learn from you. So just starting really small. And a lot of times, I coach our clients on just being more mindful of what questions people are asking you anyway. So you don't have to nearly start from scratch and build this whole content plan, calendar, to feel like you're tackling this really well, but just pay attention to what kind of questions are people asking you in your meetings or when you go out to coffee, or even a friend who doesn't really understand your work yet. Like, what kind of questions are they going to be wondering about? And just kind of take it one at a time and answer those questions in your posts. Because at the end of the day, if you're adding value to someone's life, you're educating them, you're informing them, like, you can't lose. And then I would just say, don't be discouraged if you only get a couple of likes on your posts. Like, that isn't very normal. Even, this week I had a post that only got a handful of likes, but at the end of the day, it is driving connections and it's driving those conversations. So, I noticed last year, the top 3 biggest projects that we got came from posts with very small engagement. So like less than 20 likes on a post. But instead of liking the post, people are sending me a DM, or they're asking, they're going to the website and filling out a contact form there. So they are taking some sort of action. It just might not be that public, visible engagement on a post. So don't get discouraged if you're not getting tons of likes and tons of comments. It doesn't mean the content's not working. It just means people are thinking and, processing it in a different way, maybe, than what you see visibly online.
That's also interesting about that idea that, like, what the algorithm likes versus what people like, where it might have been that the algorithm, there's some other post, the algorithm brought them to your page, but then it was that post that really resonated with them to get them to want to get involved. Well, that's all great advice and very, very appreciated. And it was a pleasure to get to chat with you about this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work you're doing. It's so, so important. And I'm excited to keep seeing it grow and keep seeing all this amazing resources come out for nonprofit EDs. So thank you. So a few more notes about that, just to plug some of our upcoming stuff with the Proimpact project. So we're launching the Proimpact ED Hive using the same software for folks who are familiar with the nonprofit Hive. They've got an amazing back-end platform called Community Hives that helped launch it, where any ED can be scheduled into one-on-one calls with another executive director once a month, totally free. So I'd invite folks to check that out. Proimpact.org has all of our upcoming stuff, the future calls, conversations like this that we'll be having. So we've got an exciting one coming up next week that we've got a little video about right here, and want to hear feedback from EDs and build the most beneficial content that we can for you all. So thank you all so much, and hope to see you next week.
Coming up on episode 102 of the Proimpact Pod, How should modern executive directors think about strategic planning? Join host Greg Harrell Edge and special guest Brooke Ritchie Babbage live on LinkedIn on Tuesday, July 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern, or catch the replay on